Africo, tell me a bit about how you've been over the past few days since you've decided to resign from a partnership in national unity.
A little uncomfortable. Persons have been asking questions as it relates to my resignation and what has led me to resign. And as a school teacher, the children have been asking because they've seen the front page of the newspapers, particularly the Chronicle. And Monday morning, I remember distinctly that the children, the ones who were in grade 6, came up to me and said, "Miss, you resigned. Miss, what led you to resign from the APNU?" And I broke it down for them. I said, you know, children, I'm sure you do not want to know that some persons are abusing Miss, and you would not be happy to know that some persons are disrespectful. And I'm sure you would not agree with my views not being expressed and me being silenced and me being unable to speak for myself.
Yes.
And they said, "Miss, we don't want that for you." You know, and I said, well, it is for that reason that I resigned, or for those reasons. And so lots of things are being said about me, as you do know. On the I'm not a Facebook person, but some of the parents have been telling me some of the things. For example, one parent said to me, "Miss, you know you're on Gordon Mosley's page," and another parent said to me, on Tuesday, some persons have been saying that you've been offered a diplomatic posting or you've been enticed by the PPP. And I want to say to everyone that I've never been offered any posting, diplomatic or otherwise. I've never been made any offers. And the decision that I made to leave the APNU, I made it a while ago, maybe a year ago, when some things that I consider to be important for Guyana's development, bills, and not only bills, appropriations too, budgetary spending. For example, I believe that, and I've shared it with my colleagues, but what I found sometimes when the leaders make their decisions, without consulting, they're unwilling to change those decisions. And for me, what should have been supported was the student loan, because education is so important. I myself have benefited from the student loan. And not many persons, young persons, are able to pay to attend university. And as I think most parents, because times are hard in Guyana, most parents cannot wait until their children complete secondary school for them to start working. Parents look forward to that. And so once an avenue is created there for students to access financial assistance, then they will grasp at it. And when the AFC APNU decided they will cut this, I felt that was not the way to go. And I did tell them, because for me that was important. But the person who go ahead.
Let's take it slowly, right? So you joined. What were your reasons for joining? First of all, the PNC, I believe it was. What enticed you about that political party at the time when you joined?
Okay, I joined in 2006, July 2006, a month before the election. I was basically attracted to the idea of there being free education at the university level, because I was lecturing part-time political science at the university, and I am always interested in development through education. And this free education, I think that was the only catch for me.
Yes.
And so I jumped on the campaign and on the platform, and have always advocated and will advocate for education to be the center of any country's policy or platform.
Okay, when you got there, you joined, you realized that, look, you're into a bigger pool, so to speak. Politics has hit you, you lecture it, now you're in it. What were your experiences at the early stages? I believe Robert Corbyn was the leader of the party at that time and of the opposition.
That is correct. Mr. Corbyn is an excellent politician and a very good leader. As a during the early stages, we used to have parliamentary caucus, parliamentary meeting every month. And the records will show that those meetings were held every month. I used to take the notes for the meetings. And every time before Parliament, there used to be a meeting, notwithstanding that you had the monthly parliamentary meeting. When the order paper came out, we would meet to discuss the items on the order paper. Sometimes we would spend all day discussing it, and members were able to give their views, opposing, supporting, and so on. In the 10th Parliament, we started to meet monthly. But because I think it created a financial burden on interland members of Parliament, a decision was taken that we will just meet whenever we had a sit-in and they were in Georgetown. After a while, maybe about 18 months or thereabout, we stopped meeting as often as we used to. And then the meetings, they basically started watering down to just meeting like an hour or half an hour before the Parliament session, which in my opinion does not give us, the members of Parliament, an opportunity to make our input on items on the order paper within the party, right? To make our input. So that's what's been happening. And I am dissatisfied with that because I believe in consultation, I believe in compromise, and in order for you to contribute, you have to spend time discussing, ventilating, and so on.
After you realized that had happened, that the meetings were not happening as often as they were happening, and that at that point in time it was almost impossible for you to have a frank say about how you felt about bills, legislation, and other issues on the order paper, what was your next step? What else happened that caused you to become more uncomfortable within the partnership?
Sometime around March, April of last year, when the when the anti-money laundering bill was back and forth on the select committee, I felt that should have been supported because that's a must for Guyana. You know, you must have such a legislation in place. And so I sent an email to the leader of the APNU and to Mr. Greenwich, the shadow finance minister, with my reasons for us supporting the anti-money laundering bill. I think that was maybe after 4 in the morning. I received a call after 5 from the chief whip, who basically lambasted me.
For what?
For sending an email with my reasons for supporting this bill. I mean, literally curse out.
This is Miss Ali?
Miss Ali.
Over the phone?
Over the phone.
Cursing you for sending the
for
email
sending
or for the position you took?
Both. For taking the position and for sending the email. You know, she said that this is the APNU position. We're not supporting it, and you have to go with that. And I don't expect you to send any such thing over the email. You know, and for me, that really hurt. In that this is my view. I should be respected for it. I should not be abused, berated for making my views known to the members of the party. And you know what really disturbed me is that the email was not even sent to her, which meant one of the leaders, quote unquote, had to call her, tell her, and maybe tell her to upbraid Miss Selman for sending such an email.
And so she
so
she called you.
And so she called me and scolded me for my views and for sending the email. Both.
What was the next step after that? After the email, you still remained a member of parliament. You voted against so you told the lie. What was next?
Well, several things have been happening.
Take me through them as you can remember them in no particular order.
Okay, which of course led me to become further
Yes.
frustrated and disenchanted. I think most of all it was the way members of parliament were treated, by senior members within the party. Miss Kisoon, and I have never stood up to anyone. I have never said to her, Miss Ali, this is not the way you should speak to me. You're wrong, you're out of line. I've always remained quiet, and when she's finished speaking, I would say, okay, because I did not want to become the person I'm not. I was properly brought up to respect authority, functional authority. My father said, your ears do not grow past your head. And so I would not fight you in your own house. So I would not say to, the leaders that you've offended me, and to appear aggressive. And we saw what happened with Vanessa when she dared to stand up against the chief whip. She was demoted to the backbench. So I did not want to become a Vanessa Kisoon. No, nor do I want to become an aggressive person. I'm not going to allow anyone to change me. This is who I am. And so, of course, there were several incidents when she was disrespectful to members of parliament. They brought it to the attention of the leader, Mr. Granger. I know for a fact that Renita, who was abused by Miss Ali, she sent a letter complaining to Mr. Granger. I spoke to Mr. Granger about her attitude, and he said he had no clue that that's the way she treated members of parliament. And he undertook to speak with her, but after he said that to me, another incident occurred in December, and that is what really, that was my breaking point. On the 19th or the 20th of December, there was Christmas at Congress Place, and since I became a member of parliament, I have been assisting with the decorations, and I've co-opted different persons to help me, family members, close friends, and so on. And I was on it. Miss Ali wanted the place decorated. She was the coordinator on the Wednesday, and the event was the Friday. So the person, my chief assistant, you can say, his mother was sick, and so she was hospitalized, and he was unable to purchase the balloons on the Wednesday and the Thursday. And I told Miss Ali that, the person's mother is not well, and so we are going to do it, but it's going to be done on Friday. The Friday morning, whilst I was sitting with the children, she called, and in the worst of words, said, if you're not going to be able to do it, then I don't want my place messed up, the FNS, the language, and so on. And my phone is a little loud, and I was sitting among the children, as I usually do, and they were actually hearing someone cursing me on the phone, so I had to get up and I went outside. And I recorded that on my phone. And when she was done, I said, okay, the person went, the place was decorated, but that was it for me. The General Secretary, Mr. Clark, he called me, and because they wanted the choir, our school's choir, to perform for them, and I recounted the incident to him. He was surprised, and he said, but that's the usual Miss Ali. And he said he's going to speak to her, but I didn't hear from Miss Ali until way in January, when she wanted me to do her a personal favor. But that was it.
So Vanessa, so Africo, your story is one that is mixed with all of these verbal abuses, and it's really as a result of the chief whip and her interaction with you, and not being able to have a say at a greater say, that is, with respect to what positions the APNU should take or so. Those were the sole reasons as to why you tendered your resignation?
The sole reasons.
Now, while you were within the partnership, explain this for me. Isn't there a structure that must be followed if you have a grievance or so, don't you complain? And you said you have to the leader of the party, the general secretary of the PNC. Did you expect to get any sort of recourse, justice out of your complaints?
In the beginning, I did, and it is for that reason that I did raise it with the leader, expecting that this would not happen again because this is the leader, and if the leader speaks to her, she would comply. For example, in 2007, I was the scribe for the Central Executive Committee, and one incident occurred. I should have been at a public meeting that Miss Ali, who was the mobilizer, organized, and there was Central Executive meeting, so the two collided, the two events. And as the scribe, I decided I would go to the Central Executive meeting and forego the public meeting. I don't even think I was informed about the public meeting. Miss Ali, who was the head of mobilization, she called me and she said, you're supposed to be at this meeting, and she went on and on. Of course, I was fresh, I was new, and so what I did, I hung up the phone on her, and I called the leader, Mr. Corbin, at that time, and I told him, and he said, you go ahead to the Central Executive meeting, I will speak with her, and if she ever speaks to you like that again, let me know. And it never happened again under his tenure, because he took a position, and that was it. And so I was surprised for these repeated incidents after I spoke to Mr. Granger.
But how do you feel about that? Because obviously Mr. Granger is praised by those among him as being someone who is disciplined and militant and who sticks to the rules and all of those things. And Vanessa said the same thing, that she complained about Mr. Clark, that she spoke to the chief whip, that she spoke to the leader, and at the end of her scenario, she ended up nowhere. She actually ended up in a battle with the leader over this issue. So how do you feel about that, Mr. Granger's leadership in terms of taking action against persons within the party who are excessive to other persons, and Mr. Corbin, who you've contrasted?
I guess because of my personal experience and the experiences of others who would have brought complaints and have received no recourse or have received no redress. I could only conclude that Mr. Granger is not doing a good job because he has to lay down the law and it has to be followed.
Now, a lot of things have been said about you. Mr. Harman said, who came into the partnership in 2011, that the party is not going to lose a single vote because you decided you're going to resign, you weren't working, you weren't doing anything basically for the party of the last 2 years or 3 years. His words, not mine. Ms. Ali dismissed it outright, saying that you were never an asset to the party to begin with. And there have been all of these other things that have been said about you. I mean, you're a woman, you're a young politician, someone who's been around now for quite a long time. How do you feel about these responses coming from a party that you've served since 2006?
All I can say is that the record will speak for itself. I have made my contribution in Parliament, and the Hansards will show that I have made my contribution. I've never shrunk from any responsibility. When given a task, I always complete my task. And I vividly recall that when I said to Mr. Granger about one of Miss Ali's outbursts, he said, after a while, I didn't know this was happening in Africa, but after a while, you will begin to question yourself, to ask, what kind of person am I to allow myself to be abused and treated like this when you do not shrink from any of your responsibilities? So I'm not surprised that they're saying those things about me, because that's the nature of politics. They will want to attack me. They will want to bring me down. But they will lose more than one vote, because my family, they've been behind me 100% to leave since the attack started. And so they certainly will not get those votes.
Now, minus that, Africa, they've also said that that you were one of the MPs, so the PPP had offered. Now that is being said that possibly you were one of those persons who were offered the $50 million to betray the APNU.
That is certainly not true, you know, and God is my witness. And one of my students, my pupils, said to me, "This is not what people say about you is important, but it's what you know, and truth will play out." I've never been offered anything, and had the no confidence motion come before the National Assembly, I would have voted in favor of the no confidence motion because I'm a disciplined person, and I would have followed the party line, right? When I believe that, and I don't know if you know, that I tendered my resignation on the 26th, even though Parliament was being dissolved on the 28th. I did that against the background that one of the members of the APNU, a leading member, held a meeting in my community, and with the few persons who attended, of course, and she was saying to them that, Africo Selman has been here member of Parliament, and she has done nothing to develop this community.
Which community is that?
Friendship on the East Bank. But when we, the APNU, get into power, into government, we will develop the community. For example, the squatting area. I remember 8 years ago when I was going around and talking to the people in the squatting area. They had no roads. They had no water. But today, they have roads and they have water. And that is some development for me.
Yes.
But she went so far as to say that I've done nothing.
Who was the MP?
No, it wasn't the MP that said that. It was one of the leading members of the APNU. And so the people in the community, they told me about it. I think that meeting was held on the Sunday. Was it the Sunday? I think it was the Sunday. And when they told me about it, I became upset because she said that I did nothing. And I'm teaching at a prominent private school, so I'm working for a lot of money, she said. And so she said, for Miss Selman, it's just about the money. And that is not so. I'm interested in people's development. And so I tendered my resignation from the Parliament.
Have you received any calls from Mr. Granger? Any calls from Mr. Harman, the chief whip of the party, the general secretary of the PNC?
Mr. Clark is the only person who called me. Very jovial in his usual way, to say, Africa, I've seen your resignation, and I don't believe it. He called me last Friday, I think it was, and I returned this call Saturday morning because the phone, I think, was on silent, and I wasn't able to speak with him on Friday. And he said, I don't believe it. So I said, Mr. Clark, it is true. And you know the way Miss Ali treats people. And he says, girl, in life you have to put up with a lot of things. Those were his words. In life you have to put up with a lot of things, And he says, I will miss you because you're a nice person. Continue to be the person you are. And call the GS from time to time.
Do you feel much better now about the decision you've taken?
I do.
Do you feel that you made the wrong decision?
No, I made the right decision. If I had to make it again, I'll make it again. Except, of course, I probably would have made it earlier.
And what is your advice to the young politicians who are getting involved now within the APNU, and they've now joined a wider coalition? And, some of their futures are not certain, like Mr. Bond was pointing out. They don't know what's next for them.
I would say not only to young politicians, I would say to any young person and even children, be your own person. Do not allow yourself to be controlled. Do not allow yourself to be intimidated. Do not allow yourself to be abused, particularly women, young women. Stand up for yourself. It is unfortunate, and I am saddened that some members of the PNC would allow themselves to be abused and would grow old under that abuse.
Okay. Now, finally, what's next for you, Africo? What's the next step for you?
I am willing to work with anyone or any political party that share my vision for Guyana. education, youth development, and of course you do know that I have championed the cause of youths. I have basically called on the government to formulate a national youth strategy. They have a draft. They've said publicly they have a draft, and if there's any way I can help, I'd be more than willing to help and to work with the PPP if